Hello and welcome to the Freedom Baptist Church podcast. From Freedom Baptist Church in Mineola, Texas, where we're free from the chains of sin and death. Thank you for listening and please enjoy.
Start off in Genesis 37. You know, there's an old-time revivalist, I'm not working my class. There's an old-time revivalist, young kid, a long time ago when they used to have tent revivals. Can everybody hear me? And he set up a tent in this one little old town. He got out, he worked diligently, and he put it out all over the town. He got there that night, and one old man showed up, one old farmer showed up. He told the old man, he said, I don't know what to do. He said, there ain't nobody here but you. What do you suggest I do? He said, well, young man, when I go to feed my cows, whether the cows are there or not, I'm going ahead and feed them. So the young man said, all right, we're going to do that. So he got out there, he waxed eloquent. I mean, he laid it down. He preached for about an hour and a half, started preaching. He got through, he looked at the old man and said, well, old man, what do you think about that sermon? He said, well, young man, he said, when I go to feed the cows, I don't put the whole load out there if they ain't all there. So, that being said, y'all going to get the whole load today. Like I said, I don't know why I've been studying this, but here goes nothing. And Genesis 37th chapter is where we're going to start. We all know the story of Joseph. We've all heard it as kids. We've all heard it as kids. I'm just going to give you a brief overview. Our text verse will come in chapter 39, verse 21, and chapter 50, verse 20. So like I said, we're going to be here in just a minute. We've all heard the story of Joseph. We know that Joseph was a dreamer. Joseph was a young man. This is about 1,700 years before BC, before Christ. One day, Joseph got a dream. And that's what we're asking all of us to do, is dream. Get a vision. Get a vision for where we want to go, how we want to go, what we want to proceed, what we think we need to do. So God gave Joseph this dream of how he was going to rule over his brothers. We know the story about how Joshua went and told his brothers this great story, this great vision that God gave him. We know how Joseph was hated by his brother because he was loved by his father. So they took him and they beat him and they threw him in a pit. And he was captured, dug out of the pit, and sold to the Egyptians. And he wound up in Potiphar's house. Potiphar was in charge of the king's goods. We know going through that God had given Joseph this dream. But here we see a young man that's walking in the fullness and the promise of God's dream. He's beaten by his brothers. He's talked about. He's thrown in a pit. He's pulled up out of a pit. And he's taken as a slave. He's sold as a slave in Potiphar's house. And the word says that he rose to prominence. And Potiphar put him over everything in his house, even including his food. We know the story of how the Word says that he was a handsome young man. He was ruddy. He was a handsome young man. We've heard the story of how Potiphar's wife tried to seduce him and grab the clothes off of him. When he ran, he said, I can't do this thing. When he ran, she called the other men in. She had his clothes. She lied about it. And Potiphar threw him into the prison. Now, this young man has got a word from God. He's got a promise from God. He's there. He's been cast into a pit, beaten, stripped, sold into slavery, lied about, thrown into prison. What do we think that he was thinking long about this time? God, where are you at? God, you gave me this promise. God, what are you trying to do? I've been faithful to you. I've got my brethren, they tried to kill me, threw me in a pit. They sold me as a slave. I was in Potiphar's house. I was doing all right. I said no to her advances. They threw me in a pit. So he's got to be feeling down long about this time, don't you reckon? Knowing that he is walking with God, knowing that he is doing everything he knows to do. Can you imagine the despair? Can you imagine the hurt in this young man's eyes? Can you imagine how he's feeling, knowing that you're hated, that Potiphar's trying to kill you, and all the time knowing that you've got a word from God. And you're sitting there, God, what are you doing? What are you doing? I don't know if any of you have ever been in a pen, and by all rights, I should be coming up for parole in about 3 years. But in verse 21, let's go back up to 18. And it came to pass, I lifted up my voice and cried, and he lifted his garments and fled out. This is verse chapter 39. And it came to pass when his master heard the words of his wife, after this did the servant to me, and his wrath was kindled. And Joseph's master and threw him into the prison, a place where the king's prisoners were bound, and he was there in prison. The next verse. But the Lord was with Joseph and showed him mercy and gave him favor in the sight of the keeper of the prison. Let's go to the Lord in prayer. Father, we thank you for the day. We thank you for those that have taken time to come out and listen to your word, Father, that they might glean something, that something might hit home, Father, that they might get a word from God. Father God, I ask you bless this word that you've given me. Father, I ask that it shall not return void. Father, I ask now that you use me one more time before you take me home. Father, I ask these things in the name of the Son and the power of Jesus Christ. Amen. Now let's look at these things. Look at what he's gone through. How many of us in our life, we're doing everything we can. We're doing what God's told us to do. We're there by God's direction. We can't see it. Do you think Joseph was thinking that God was with him when he was in prison? Do you think that Joseph was questioning God? Do you think he was questioning his vision, what God had given him to see, his ability that he wanted, what was going to happen. Do you think he was kind of questioning God, Brother Vernon? I would have been. Don would have been. Don would have been the first one. God, what are you doing? Why is this happening to me? You gave me these promises, these great and abundant promises. You give me this vision. Lord, let's make it happen. Let's get to it. Lord, what are you waiting on? Let's get to it. But Joseph was languishing in prison. Number one, because he told his vision to his brothers. The first thing about a vision. We're asking you to get. When God gives you that vision, tell it. Let people know what God has told you to say, what God has given you. That personal word, that personal revelation. That's what Joseph did. And we think, oh, everything's going to be great, but what happened? He got beat and thrown in a pit. He was sold as a slave. Things weren't quite working out for him. But he did what God told him to do. He told his brothers what it was going to be. Like I said, he was sold. Now, he went in. The scholars say that he was about 17 years old. We don't know how long he was in service, but we do know that he came to power in the king's house when he was 30 years old. That's a settled fact. So you've got 13 years. From 17 to 30. That's 13 years. 13 years of this young man questioning God. God, why are you doing this? Why don't you just go ahead and bring it to power? You've given me the vision. You've given me what the word to say. And when I said the word, when I said what you told me to say, it got me thrown here. But the Lord was with Joseph. The Lord was with Joseph. You know, we look at all these things. We look at these mighty heroes of faith. Let's go back to Daniel's time. The 3 Hebrew children. Did God save them from the fire? No. He saved them. Daniel, when he was in the lion's den, did God save him in the lion's den? Did he keep him out of the lion's den? No, God was with him in the lion's den. No matter what you're going through right now, no matter how hard it looks, no matter how hard it looks, no matter how downtrodden you feel, no matter how long you've been in this prison for doing what God told you to do, God's there with you. He's always there with you. What did he say? What did Jesus say? I will never leave you nor what? Forsake you. Is that a promise? That sounds an awful lot like a promise to me. That sounds like Jesus. I believe that's in the red letter, didn't it? Jesus is promising you He will never leave you, and God never left Joseph. No matter what battle you're going through, no matter what temptation you're going through, no matter what temptation Potiphar's wife is putting at you, God's there with you. Why? Because God puts you here. He puts you in this position for this time. Why? To test you and see your metal. Would it have been an easy for Joseph to just throw up his hands and went on back about his business? Would it have been easier for him to just forget God and go on about the Egyptian way of life? It would have been easier for him in prison to just forsake God. But he stood fast. Fast forward 13 years later. He's still in the prison. They figure he was in the prison sometime about 7 years. 7 years is a pen for a crime he didn't commit. 7 years in the pen for a crime he didn't commit. 7 years in the pen. Questioning, why have you got me there, God? Looking back at his past life when he was a 17-year-old boy thrown in the pit. God, you gave me this promise. God, you gave me this word. God, you told me. You gave me this dream. Your dream will always be tested. If God has given you a dream, it is always going to be tested. I say, look at the Old Testament saints. God always tested them. And God's testing this young man for 13 years. Put him through a literal hell on earth. For what? We don't know. We don't see the big picture. We want it now. We live in a society that wants the blessings of God now. But it doesn't come now. Like I say, God's baby will always be tested. So let's go on over to the 50th chapter of the book of Genesis. You shouldn't let me have technology. That's all I got. We're going to the 50th chapter of Genesis. Now, the dream. He is languishing in the pen. And the king gets a dream. Nobody can interpret it. The king's steward says there's a man, he's good at interpreting things. So, Joseph interprets the dream. What it's going to be. He said, now, when you get out, he's talking to the king's baker. He said, when you get out, you tell the king about me, so that it'll be well for both of us. Barnes' notes says that when he was talking to the chef, the king's chef, then he told him to remember him so it would be well with us. But what did he do? He forgot. So the king had another dream. He interpreted. The king brought him out. The dream was 7 years of feast and 7 years of famine. The dream, 7 years of feast, 7 years of famine. When we get to Joseph, he puts him second in command. Y'all remember Potiphar? Can you imagine what Potiphar thought when the king raised Joseph up to second in command? Potiphar looked at his wife and said, you remember that young Hebrew boy that tried to assault you? Well, he's still answering to me. He's the boss. We go through a long list. He spent 13 years languishing in pits, in slavery, in the penitentiary. And now he's come to his place in God. The promise. We know that his brothers came to get food. There was a great famine in the land. There was a great famine in the land. We know the story of how the younger brother was kept. We know all these stories. What we're trying to understand here is why God waited so long to answer Joseph. Why did he put him through this much? And in the 50th chapter, excuse me, in the 20th verse, go back up to the 19th verse. Now, his father had died, and his brothers were scared of him. They were scared that the only reason that he kept him alive was for the father. Now, the father has died. The father has died, and they're all scared that Joseph is going to kill him. So we're going to get verse 18. And his brethren also went and fell down before his face, and they said, Behold, we be thy servants. And Joseph said unto them, Fear not, for am I in the place of God? But as for you, ye thought evil against me, but God meant it unto good, to bring it to pass at this day, to save much people alive. We live in a society where we want the blessings of God now. But if Joseph had failed his assignment, if Joseph had faltered, he wouldn't have been raised to that place of honor. He wouldn't have been number 2 in the kingdom. He wouldn't have been able to save his brothers and sisters. So what you're going through right now is there for a purpose. What I'm going through, and I'm preaching to me, because Lord knows we're going through some stuff. But what you're going through there, the world, the flesh, and the devil, they meant it for evil. But God meant it for good. We're, like I say, we're an instant gratification society. We want to say the Lord's Prayer, get saved, and wake up an instant Christian. An instant Elijah. But it don't work that way. We have to be tried. We have to be tested. Remember Jeremiah, we were told to go down to the potter's house. We're told how they fashioned the clay. And when they got the clay to the form that they wanted it, what did they do? They stuck it in the fire. That's what Joseph did for 13 years. Joseph was in the fire. Joseph was being built. In our lives, we can't equate our lives to what Joseph went through. But it's basically the same thing. We go through hardships, we go through trials, we go through testing, we go through asking God, are you real? God, am I saved? Why is all this happening? Why didn't you just let it happen? Why don't you just answer me now? Why don't you just fill me with your Spirit and wipe away all of this? The trials that we go through, the world means it for evil, but God means it for good. Why? What? Here comes the good part. Y'all thought I was rambling. Here comes the good part. Joseph was thrown in the pit. Joseph was thrown in prison. Joseph didn't lose his testimony to God. As hard as life was on Joseph, as hard as the doubt was in his life, the questioning God, he got up every morning as a slave does, as a prisoner does, and went on about his job. Did he feel like it? Probably not. Did he question God? Probably. But did he stand fast to the Word of God? That's what this is all about. Our testing, not only does it try us by fire, but if you'll remember, down at the potter's house, when God's fashioning this clay, God's fashioning this pot, this cup for you to drink out of. And it's a beautiful cup. But if it's not in the fire, what happens to it when you put water in it, put a liquid in it? It falls apart. The fire is necessary. It was necessary for Joseph to be thrown in the pit, to show him that all he could rely on was God, not his family. It was necessary for him to be sold as a slave, to learn how to work like a slave. It was necessary for him to be lifted up in Potiphar's house to the number 2 position. The word said that Potiphar didn't even know the food that he had to eat because it came to Joseph. It was necessary for him to be lied about. So is the world, you see. Our trials of faith, although they benefit us greatly because they temper us, no matter how beautiful an outside you are, if you have an uncured inside, you're going to fail. So we've got to have the fire of God. You remember in Hebrews, the word says that our God is a consuming fire. What is it consuming? It's consuming the dross. It's consuming those little imperfections. So that when you are put in that position, when you are put in that position of number 2 under Pharaoh, that you've got a cool head. You know what the promise is. The promise is that your brothers and sisters are going to come worship at your feet. It was 13 years after he got the vision that he got the answer. Like I said, we want answers now. God, you gave me that vision of my children being saved. God, you gave me that vision of my grandchildren being saved. God, you gave me that vision of this church house being filled to overflowing. God, you gave me this vision of reaching out and touching Mineola, Texas. God, you gave me this vision of the bus ministry. God, you gave me this vision to help those that can't help themselves. Why is this taking so long? Because if it happened now, I know God. God would be the big head. Look what I did. If Joseph had gotten the promise 13 years before, y'all don't worship me. Look what I did. Look what God done for me. No. God has to take us through the fire to knock out the impurity, to knock out Don. Because no flesh shall glory in his sight. As long as Don is walking around with pride. You see, that's what his great problem was, pride. Remember the dream? What was the dream? He came to his brother and said, God showed me that y'all were going to worship me. Y'all are going to fall down in my feet and worship me. Me. Mine. My. I. Ask the question. What was the first sin? I will. Satan said, I will ascend. Why did the blessing have to wait 13 years to get I out of the way? See, even though he remained steadfast, he had to make sure that all of self was killed in his life. Or, what would you have done if you'd been raised to the king's position and your children had done to you, your brothers and sisters had done to you what they did to Job? You've got the power of life and death. If I was in the throne, if John was running it, y'all going back to starve. Y'all going back to starve. All those sufferings, while everybody else is living the high life. All the brothers and sisters, they got lied to Daddy, told him he was dead, told him he was 85 lying. Daddy's over here worried. All you brothers and sisters, they're having a high time, a high old time. The devil ain't bothering them none. While you're blaming, while you're asking, God, why don't you hear my prayers? Am I alone in this, God? God, I feel so alone. God, I just need to hear you. Number one, in the darkest hours of his life, of Joseph's life, the Word said, and God was with him. Jesus promised you that he would never leave you nor forsake you. Jesus is the one that walks beside us. Jesus is the one that holds our hands when we think we can't go on no more. When our children have driven us to the right over the edge, to where we think we can't go no more. Yes, Renee. Jesus is right there. Just ask Jesus is right there with you. I will never leave you nor forsake you. No matter how hard it gets. Brother Don, I just don't know how we're going to make it. I just don't see no way around it. I just don't see any way. Well, Jesus, number one, if you're talking about sickness, he's the great physician. Go to him. If you need finances, go to him. He owns the cattle on 1,000 hills. But just remember, all this is going on in your life is nothing more than heat to temper that clay so that you can be a vessel rightly used of God. That's all we're doing. That's all that's happening. Everything that's going on in your life, everything, every pain, everything that's going on in your life right now, every time we're tempted to question God about the things that are going on in our life. But as for you, He saw evil against him. But God didn't know good. Everything Joseph went through was to save his family. Everything, every trial, getting thrown in the pit, getting pulled out, getting saved, getting sold into slavery, getting raised up in Potiphar's house, getting thrown into prison. God had a plan. We can't see God's plan. All we can do is feel His love. All we can do is trust Him. We sing these songs that we just gloss over as and it's tragic because some of these songs we sing are so beautiful and have so much history behind them. Only trust Him. Only trust Him. You see, Joseph had the vision. Joseph had the dream. But it took 13 years to get to it. That's a long time. That's a long time of trial and testing. But they meant for evil, and God meant for good. Brother Steve, you and this panel come up. We're just going to have a couple of verses. We're low in numbers today. I ask right now that you put Miss Peggy on your prayer request that she might be spared from the ravages of COVID again. We ask for the ones that are not here.